So, as alluded to in the last episode, we are going to be talking about Pooh and his Prince Pooh and his introduction to the party, his introduction section. And I guess I kind of unintentionally am cosplaying as Prince Pooh today because I shaved my hair yesterday, interestingly. So, where it starts is basically the last episode. It almost happens immediately after that, where we talk to the magic cake lady, go outside, she makes a magic cake for you, we eat it, and then Ness has a vivid dream, basically about Prince Pooh in his country, Dalam, or I don't know how you'd say it, I guess Dalam. And then you go through his little introduction, which has a lot of interesting stuff in it, which I'm going to talk about. So I will show those sections and then talk about it as usual. So, as our perspective shifts, we are brought to Prince Pu in his palace in this strange floating country in Dalam. We are immediately told by his master to go to the place of emptiness and endure your final test. It'll become more apparent very shortly what exactly this place of emptiness is and is for. So, as you get to the bottom of this area in Dalam, you read this signpost near this strange mountain or hill kind of area, and you find out that this is Mu, the place of nothingness. People who train here must first clear everything from their mind. If you can make your mind blank and learn the true meaning of Mu, you'll pass through. Mu is Mu. Now, I don't know what Mu means besides maybe just to be used as some kind of joke or something, but there's probably some meaning to it there. What we will find out is that Pu has to basically mentally, spiritually or whatever, just give up all his physical possessions in some regard, like not just the physical parts of his own body in his training here. Like, this was something that Danny on his channel brought up at some point, or he brings up often, but he brought up specifically in one video, where we as humans or whatever, we look at things that happen to us or that our bodies do in some ways, our avatars do, and we don't really give them any thought, like most things really, like things that we've gotten very good at doing or whatever. Like we kind of have some weird assumption that it's more of us doing that than something automatic happening in our body or avatar or whatever. But then we look at animals and we don't really realize, like, when a bird is flying or anything, like a bug or something, when a bird is flying, it's not thinking about what it's doing. It's just doing it. It knows deep down, or it's a part of it that it can fly. Like, it doesn't need to ever consciously think about that. It just does. And just like our body or whatever regulates our heartbeat and various other things, and whatever does flexes this muscle in that area to pull this thing so we can lift up something or whatever, we don't ever consciously think about it. We just do. It just is. He comes to the concept of, like, really the most important thing you kind of have to realize to a degree is, if you want to sort of connect with your true self or whatever, your innermost non of this place part of you, the part that is most disconnected from the avatar, you kind of have to disconnect as well from the anchors of your bodily avatar and all that stuff. You have to disconnect from all that. But also, the thing that people don't really think about, you have to disconnect from thought to a degree entirely. Like, you could even see it when you are doing something that you are, say if you're, I don't know, playing piano or something, or playing catch or something, just something that you're physically so used to doing that you don't even have to think about. As soon as you try to start thinking about it, you basically forget in it to a degree. You fail doing it. Like, one would say you psych yourself out, but you don't do it consciously, and and you fail doing it consciously. And the only way to be, like, proficient at what you are so used to doing before is to stop thinking about it is remove all thought from the equation. Remove your mind from the equation entirely. In a very long-winded way, this is basically what this moo training is, I guess. Is like Pooh, or anybody that does this training, removing all of the conscious aspects, that being, if you want to go with the psychological terms, the id and the ego from it entirely, and just letting it be, letting it almost control itself, or letting it do its thing, letting the bird fly as it knows it could do and it knows it was always able to do, is not letting the mind take over and basically ruin it in a way. And as I said, way too long-winded on that, but I'll probably continue on that as I show this section. And this guy that you talk to before you go up there, his name is the Star Master. And later on we'll get to that, but he eventually teaches Pooh, after I guess he does his own training that he needs to complete or whatever. He teaches Pooh the ability PSI Starstorm, which is a extremely powerful offensive ability. And then you climb up to this area, and immediately somebody is trying to distract you from this meditation of, removing all from yourself in a way. And, that would be part of the, one can almost look at this like with minions or whatever, in a way. Is like they try to distract us from training or whatever, our true trying to improve ourselves and stuff. And that was obviously what the attempt was. Maybe not maliciously, but probably the master told somebody to say, hey, tell Pooh to come back here, so he, if he does come back here, then he's still not ready for his training yet, if he doesn't disregard everything during this. And then obviously during this very strange sequence of Pooh's meditation in this place of nothingness, place of emptiness, you see this pretty creepy spirit, I guess, connect with Pooh or whatever, start communicating with him and such. This is like for a game that is rated whatever it is, this is like really messed up kind of stuff for a lot of kids, I would say. Like, yeah, this would scare the crap out of some kids. Like, wow, this is not something you'd really expect from a quote-unquote kids video game or whatever. Just so many other things in this game, so many themes and sections. But this is definitely one of the bigger ones where it's like, wow, this is not something kids would really be probably prepared to see in some degree. To complete your trial, I'm going to break your legs. You will lose the use of them. Do you accept this? Cannot walk as your legs are broken. Next, I will tear your arms off. I shall then take your arms and feed them to the crows. The taking of your arms, do you accept this? Without legs and arms, you can only lie there. Now I'll cut your ears off. You do not mind my taking your hearing away, do you? Do you accept this? No legs, no arms, and no sound. My floating words through the air, I must ask you. Do you care if I take your eyes? Do you want to live in eternal darkness? I shall steal your sight. Do you accept this? Now I can only communicate directly with your mind. Your mind is all you have left. In the end, I will take your mind. Though you probably don't want to allow that, do you? So, you can't answer. You can't even move. Are you sad? Are you lonely? If you lose your mind, you will also lose any feelings of sadness. Do you accept this? I will take your mind, Prince Pooh. Know that I will possess it. And, after that pretty extremely interesting, but obviously fairly disturbing in some regards, sequence there, as I kind of just described, at the very beginning of reading that sign, like, this mood training is literally Pooh giving up all physical parts of himself, all senses that this avatar has and everything. And even including the thing that many people almost regard as more than the body in some ways, but clearly is not, that being, the mind, thought itself. And with that, he is able to complete this training, as well as, I guess ascend his power to a higher level and all that stuff. Like, this is obviously something that is extremely important, and I've been trying to do myself, like, even such little things like when I do my daily exercise, not much, like pull-ups or chin-ups, I would always be counting and using that number to determine when I should stop or how much I should continue and such. But I really wouldn't be listening to just my feelings of when I should stop or when I thought it was. I was using the numbers as the determiner. I was using the thought of it, sort of, to determine when I should stop or not. And when I listened to Danny's video about that, not thinking about these things, I was like, I'm going to try and do that. And I started doing that, and I was surprised to see how maybe it's different with some exercises, like maybe running, it's different. Just don't look at the clock kind of thing. But when you're doing something very rhythmic, it's very, like pull-ups or chin-ups, it's very hard each rep not to just automatically in your mind be thinking of the number in a way. And I still have trouble doing that, but I think I've gotten better as I've continued trying not to think. I just tried to think of something different, like even just, I don't know, just anything to keep my mind as blank as I can in a way, and just listen to what my arms are feeling at that moment to say, okay, like, now is a good time to stop. But, yeah, when you actually try to put that in practice, the concept of removing all thought, blanking your mind, not thinking, it's much harder than one would ever initially imagine until they actually try it. And just like anything, it is a trial to a degree to do. It takes effort, but I do think it is worth doing, as even stuff like this would say to me, like, if you do these kind of things, if you try to disconnect from the mind, if you try to disconnect from all these other things of your avatar, you definitely go closer, just by default to a degree, to your spiritual side, your inner side, your true self and all that. And you kind of start realizing those powers that we all realize that we do have, but I'm not saying like certain things I've realized my abilities, like maybe I could bend spoons with with thought purely, but I haven't tried it, kind of thing. It's not something I really care to want to try, I guess. But even simple things like not being ill, like when I started fasting and stuff like that, it was definitely a part of this kind of stuff that I didn't even realize at the time was, your body is extremely good at doing what is designed to do, like, repair itself and keep itself not being affected by foreign things or even just ideas, like whatever you believe sickness even is at this point. Like, I haven't gotten sick, like really sick, in a very long time. Like, I used to get sick all the time. I used to get headaches. I used to get nosebleeds. I used to get all this crap. I used to have so many problems, allergies. But now, if I ever have any of those symptoms, it is massively diminished to what it used to ever be. It almost feels like a superpower. Like, I don't have fear that my body will need to, like, of any of these sicknesses that we've always been told to be afraid of and everything. Like, I have no fear of that. And I've not been seeing that anymore since I started changing these ways and thinking these ways. So obviously there is some, in this simulation, in this physical world, there is some impact that this kind of stuff has on you. Not just the more important part, but even this little train stop or whatever, it has an effect. And then after you go back to your master, after completing your Mu training, you, I guess, have something communicating to you from eternity, as it says. I don't know who this is supposed to be or what. It's just somebody communicating it. Like with Jeff, Paula was actually telepathically communicating to him that they needed help and all that. But in this case, it's just some entity or whatever, some energy just saying, I'm communicating to you from eternity, telling you what you have to do next. What is the next part of your journey here? The evil entity that controls all wickedness is preparing for the greatest struggle of all time. The only ones who could challenge the entity are 3 boys and 1 girl. One named Ness is the leader of the 4. One of the boys is you, Prince Pooh. Now that you've completed your training, search out Ness at once. For all beings, for the Earth herself. Interesting with that theme, calling Earth, like, I guess most people would call Earth in the feminine or female tense or whatever you'd say. But, more suggestion of the title of Mother, the Japanese title of Mother being Mother Earth. And then Pooh gets a bunch of levels for essentially ascending after his training to a degree, ascending to a higher level. And then he uses his teleport ability to get to Ness. My name is Pooh. I'm the one who will fight beside you. I am the servant of Ness. I will obey Ness. Ness, my life is in your hands. And then, somewhat suddenly, you get the final member of your party, Prince Pooh. The game, just as it became easier and easier with more party members, it gets even easier to a degree with Pooh in your party, having a 4th member and all that. He's a pretty strong ally in his, with his abilities, his tool set. So I'm going to talk about something else as well that happens in Dalam, but really the more important part was obviously Prince Pooh's Mu training itself. But this other guy has some very interesting stuff to say in Dalam, and I'll talk about that as well while we're here. So the first time that you meet this guy in Dalam, he's like, talking like philosophizing, and what he asks is, what is immortality? Is it everlasting life? That is a very interesting question. It's like, what would people call immortality to some degree? Like some people would say immortality is almost like, in the fantasy genre, like vampires sort of are, like, maybe would that be immortal or immortal, immortality, same thing. Is it everlasting life? And, in that case, at least with vampires, it's like, they're not really, I guess they're alive, like they're undead or whatever, depending on what you're following, in that regard. But then people also have to think, like, man, when you think about it, would you really want everlasting life on the physical plane, as we've questioned? Like, I personally, I don't know, if it was just gonna be this, as we know it and everything, on this physical plane, and I was basically going to have the choice of, do you want to live on this place forever? Do you want this physical place to be your eternity? Do you want to always be here? And I don't know, like, life is obviously a great, amazing thing. You can't even question that, really. But, like, this specific one, I don't know. I think that would be almost a hell in itself, as many others have talked about. Like, nah, I wouldn't want that. But then also, someone has to wonder, like, what is immortality? Is it everlasting life? And then you say, well, if you count your spiritual self, the energy that is going around this whole universe, whatever you want to call it, this whole everything, this whole existence, would you count that as life? And if it is, is, as we think that the energy in that kind of sense is everlasting, is something that was always there, always will be, always has been, as Matt says, always has been, always will be. Is that everlasting life? And if you consider that life, then I guess so, yeah, because if that's eternity, then yes. So, I guess I would have to kind of know the exact definition of immortality in this degree. Now, would immortality have to be being in this meat suit living, or anything, like being in your true form and your light energy self and all that? Would that be considered immortality? I don't know. Just, way too much analysis into a somewhat interesting little line there. And then, if you go back to Dalam after getting Pooh into your party, if you talk to the same guy, he says this: what's the difference between existing and exiting? Nothing? And I think that even more so than that last one especially is an extremely interesting thing to consider, like, or a thing that can be, that thing that is said here and thing to consider is, really, what, is there a difference between existing and exiting, that being existing currently, or exiting, like leaving this place? And then he says, nothing, like, at least from what that would suggest, there isn't any difference between existing and exiting. Like, at least from my interpretation, it's like there is no difference between this physical life and quote-unquote death or whatever. Is they're one and the same. There is no difference between being here and being somewhere else after you leave this place. It is like the same thing. So one could say as well, if this is considered life, then when you go out, when you leave here or whatever, then that is life too. So it's the same thing. So it almost sort of helps with that last thing that he said as well, the immortality and everlasting life thing. Like, maybe there probably is no difference, because both would be considered life, since there isn't a difference between existing and exiting from here. I don't know, someone might just have a different interpretation there, but that one I found extremely profound of a question. Like, yeah, there is no difference between being here and being there, or out of this place, or leaving this place. And yeah, that's all I had to really say about that, but it's a really, really profound question, I guess, or a really, really profound statement to a degree. Alright, so after that probably way too long video, as usual, I think I've gotten my point across, hopefully, but I think no matter what, even if you didn't listen to anything that I said, which, maybe that's a good thing, I don't know, I think this Moo training, especially in Pooh's homeland, Dalam, has a lot to say about certain things that we like to talk about, or that we like to consider, and, an extreme amount of truth there, I would say, to it. And just to disconnect from your own physical body to a degree, to get to some higher level of yourself, and not even so much just your physical body, but the thing that people consider also, people like to consider not being physical, that being the mind or thought, that maybe it's likely a part of that in the same way, and that you need to disconnect from that conscious thought as well, because it is still a part of the avatar. It is still a part of this place. And the only way to truly get past that anchor of this place, that anchor of your avatar, is to realize that you need to disconnect from all thought and your mind as well. Not just the parts that we see, like our arms, legs, torso, all this stuff, but this as well. This is just as much anchor as the rest. But anyway, thank you for watching as usual, and I'll see you next time.